Alrighty then, it's time for a Jungle Yorick game, the legendary Pokemon of League of Legends. And I say that because it's sort of like running into an Entei. You don't know what to do, or weren't even expecting it. It's like when you run to a Yorick, it's like running into an Entei, and you're like, holy shit, I don't have my mean look Pokemon out, or whatever. You just throw an Ultra Ball and hope you catch him. That's how Yorick basically feels. Like, a lot of players, when they run into him, they don't know how to deal with him, so they end up doing dumb shit and just underestimating him. Or just don't even know how he functions because you rarely see him. If you go to OPGG and check out how many games of Yorick have been played, I checked it before this game. Only 13 Yorick games were played this entire week. That's ridiculously dismal. Nobody likes Yorick. Not even Riot. That's why Yorick is not even in the free champion rotation forever. It's just, they hate him. He'll never be played. Either way, as Jungle Yorick has a very peculiar position in the game. I think if you guys remember a couple of years ago when I actually made the tier list, I mentioned that Yorick's value is immeasurable. He's got a lot of problems as a jungler, but his ultimate is so powerful in a sense that you can't really give it any weight. Think of it this way. Jungle Yorick can deal damage, can sort of tank, but he's not really a tank and he's not really a fighter. So in the jungle, his incredible mana issues and requirement to farm is exacerbated and holds him back. So he's more like a support jungler. At the same time though, he's a support jungler that needs a ridiculous amount of gold. He needs a very specific kind of build. But his ultimate multiplies in values just incomprehensible. Essentially, like giving your ultimate to someone valuable like an Azir or a Vayne, a Cassiopeia or something, just can't be measured. You bring basically a 6 versus 5, and if your character dies, you basically resurrect them and allow them to unleash hell, and make even like a champion like Vayne not worth focusing down a second time at least, because it's just a goddamn ghost kind of situation, right? So Jungle Yorick, if Riot were to really want to make him just kind of work as is and ignoring his rework, could just make some changes to make him more jungle friendly rather than the lane, because holy shit, this lane is pretty goddamn cancer, right? So I'm pretty sure they're gonna go with the rework. We haven't had any details about it in the several years they've announced it, so I'm very, very curious what's gonna happen with him. He's probably one of my most anticipated reworks, because it just seems like they have really nothing to work with on Yorick, so they can go basically any direction with him. Will they make him a spammy kind of guy who just uses his goals to fight? Will they make him into a fighter? Will they make him into a tank? Will they make him into a support? There's just so much that they can do with him, and I'm looking forward to that. Plus, if you guys remember his lore, or the Twisted Tree Line rework thing where they talked about more lore with the characters, his lore is incredibly depressing but mysterious. Like, all of the stuff that happens with Yorick is depressing. It's like, are you lonely, Yorick, and shit like that? It's like, oh, Yorick, you do your job because somebody has to. But it just sounds like he's stuck in this kind of very depressing loop, and it makes me intrigued. Anyways, I'm mostly scouring through this early game, because if you look at my team composition and the enemy team composition, it's a very team fighty kind of game. The early game is just shenanigans of constantly farming, taking care of lanes, some kind of shitty ganks on both parts. Not much is going on, so I'm just sort of waiting for the team fights to happen, because that's where the big old Gusto stuff is going to occur. Like Yorick is basically pure team fighting. His ganking is shit. His farming is actually ridiculously fast, and you already saw has some insane sustain with some of the laziest kind of clearing you have to do. But his mana is so pitiful that even with a Tear of the Goddess, even with a Hunter's Potion, and maybe even with a blue, if you spam too much, you'll actually go thirsty. It's just some of the most insane mana requirements of any champion in League of Legends, probably the most. But still, once you get a couple levels in, once your Tear of the Goddess gets going, you'll be sustained enough. But at that point, a lot of champions have a lot of tools to make your life hell, or just fight you off or do something. Still, though, one of the things a lot of players underestimate with Yorick is that he actually deals a shitload of damage and will beat your ass if you even let him get close to you. So you'll actually get to see part of that in play. Just people underestimate how much a shovel to the face hurts. And then honestly, in real life, I've actually been hit by a shovel in the face accidentally when I was digging ditches in Mexico, and that shit hurts a lot. So I just like to think about that when I'm playing Yorick. Hit someone in the face with a shovel. Nonetheless, you can see the kills going back and forth. The enemy has quite a bit of objectives. My teammate, the goal disparity of my team is actually pretty daunting. As Yorick, you don't, well, you kind of do, because you have a huge gold disparity, but as a jungler in general, unless you're a straight up carry, you don't want to have this much gold on you. So right now, my team is in a pretty dire situation because I'm kind of the most fed. Still though, again, team fight situation, my team composition is insanely brutal as long as we get things done. And as you can see, I deal quite a bit of damage if I'm left alone, which shouldn't really be happening because their team has a lot of peeling potential. But still, just it's normal games is rather disorganized, and you got to see, you know, death by banana right there. Sorry, I got to clear my throat a little bit. Nonetheless though, I don't truly recommend Yorick to be played unless you're a really diehard Yorick fan. I've only ever played him on purpose once in ranked, but that's because we had Cassiopeia, we had Fiora, and Cassiopeia, Fiora, and Vayne. So it's just like my ultimate could hit any of those champions and it would be good. It was also old Cassiopeia, that's even better. I picked Yorick because if I wanted to, and I'm like, I could justify him here because I can cast my ultimate even accidentally and it'd be good on somebody. Either way, my teammates went for Dragon and I suggested we didn't because they were all together and we weren't, and they had the upper hand in initiating on us. So unfortunately, our desire for Dragon gets us all basically killed. We don't have the damage, or at least the organization in this part, to stand up to them, so we get systematically picked off. Here I get a little too greedy since they're very low health, and I figured I'm Yorick, I might be able to survive the shenanigans. And unfortunately, the core cube returned in better health, and I just got blown up. I should have just cut my losses and run off. So right now the enemy team has the advantage of having 2 dragons and having several kills on their belt, plus having their kills on several having their gold disparity a lot better than us. Unfortunately for them, they fight this portion here pretty poorly. Zac goes in without knowing whether or not Azure was being backed up. Corki initiates on us or tries to attack us from behind, which basically allows me to chunk him for a shitload of damage, and puts him out of position later on when he tries to get a kill on Azure, which allows him to get murdered. And then the rest of them, Cho'Gath and the Zac, just didn't have enough damage or positioning to be able to deal with us, so we killed them for basically free. Then bottom lane shenanigans, I don't actually focus on them, happen, in which the misfortune gets killed because the second Soraka leaves, the enemy team just dove his ass. Still though, it allows us to sort of regain a little bit of positioning on the map because Azure is kind of the big hitter of the team. He's 3-7 for sure, but I feel if he does it right, the enemy team will fail their initiation and then we'd be able to steamroll them. At least, you know, allow me to walk in there and maybe Shen to follow up, because focusing either of us would get them killed, while Azure pokes him from behind or Misfortune sets up a very good ultimate. At least that's my idea. It doesn't necessarily work that way because we're not able to get very good initiations and the Misfortune positioning isn't all that great, so her ultimates have sucked thus far. It's fine though, he's a whipping boy of the team, so his brother understands when we shit talk him that it's all because he deserves it, right? I'm pretty sure his brother's watching this now, and he's like, yeah, talk shit about my brother. Nonetheless though, that teamfight went poorly because we had a faulty initiation, I wasn't there, and Misfortune's ultimate had a very, very bad positioning, so it just flat out didn't work. Fortunately for us though, the enemy team doesn't seem to be able to push all that well. Like some of them scattered before they were able to take an inhibitor, so we're not going to be in a defensive position right now. We're able to sort of farm up, get our bearings back, and hopefully catch someone off guard and kill him as well. Sorry. My throat needs a little bit clearing up. And catch someone off guard. The next dragon has popped up, so we assume a teamfight's going to happen. And then Corki, during all this little chaos, decided to fight the Azure for some reason, and we just kind of ganged up on him and killed him. Zac initiates despite the fact that his teammates were sort of leaving, so it creates a very disorganized fight. Misfortune does get killed off. I accidentally used my ultimate on the wrong character, so she doesn't get to resurrect, but because their team is so split up, they're not able to take advantage of their CCs or anything, and it allows us to sort of basically beat them to death because we're very tanky and Azure's very safe. So we systematically kill them all off. Azure, Zac will scampers off somewhere and basically allows us to finish off his team. That was really bad on the enemy team. Their composition relies on them basically working as a cohesive team. They've got a lot of crowd control, and they've got a lot of damage with Corki and the Ezreal. but they're going in scattered, they're overestimating their damage, or they're underestimating just how fucking tanky Yorick and Shen can be. So, as you can see, we just kind of beat them to hell if they even get close to us. Anyways, my build is as follows. It's obviously a mono-unit build. I'm building smaller Memorias. I'm going that whole tanky fighter kind of thing. Tanky bruiser. I'm going bruiser with leanings toward defense, but I'm not trying to sacrifice damage. I'm going with more Memorias eventually. I'm going with the Iceborne Gauntlet. I have defensiveness, but I also have the damage potential. So as soon as I get close to anybody, they're not going to be able to run away, and I'm going to actually deal considerable amount of damage, as long as they're not the tanks, of course. So yeah, that's my job. Like right now here, you can see my teammates are going for Baron, and then Corki just passes by me. And he's next to me, I chunk him for a shitload of fucking damage. You can see that. He just basically gets beat to death. He had no chance of escaping other than using his Valkyrie over a wall or something. But yeah, as soon as I get close to Corki, or even Cho'Gath since he's AP, I'll kill them rather quickly. And this is where my team composition starts to shine. Their composition is lacking proper itemization. They needed probably more straight out bursts, just so they can kill the Misfortune and then or the Azure and then clean up the rest of us. And they probably needed to actually build some resistances on the Cho'Gath. He's very fragile. He can't stand a fight. And at this point, you can't really execute any of us unless we're really poorly positioned. Hell, look at here. They initiate on the tanks. They go straight out fight us, but it allows me to get into melee range, and I use my ultimate to save myself. And as soon as I pop back out, I just chase them down and murder their asses. You saw Misfortune's ultimate alone will probably 1v5 the enemy team. In this situation, they're not fighting it how they need to be. They need to have their front line in the front. They need to have Zac just try to snipe someone from for a sniping initiation or whatever. But basically, their builds are working against them. But Cho'Gath being built AP forces the Zac to stick with the team in order to provide some sort of bodyguard of some sort. Because Cho'Gath as pure AP, he's just going to get absolutely melted by the Azure or by me, who he can't focus because that would be a terrible idea. As a result of Zac having to be with the team in order to provide some bodyguard or some defense, he can't try to sneak around or use some initiation, but because we'll see it coming from wherever he is. He can't sneak about. So the Cho'Gath should have been best building either sort of like me, building Abyssal Scepter, building some like Randuin's Omen, just at least more bruisery rather than whatever he ended up building. I mean, yeah, his damage is basically tapered off. He can't kill anybody, like I said, unless we're in a really bad position and he snipes the Azir or the Misfortune or even the Soraka. But again, it's not going to happen. We're warding, we're protecting our sides. I'm shoving the lanes, I'm shoving the position just to try to scout for anybody else, and I'm throwing my ghouls in the bushes and whatnot just to slow down the enemy team and as such. So the enemy team's whole thing fell apart because during the mid to late game, their builds basically became their poison. They could no longer do what they needed to do, and my team fight composition started beating theirs. So if there's any lessons I take from this, is that just because your build might work temporarily, it isn't going to work forever, especially if your opponents are building to sort of resist that, or at least fighting in a way that punishes your build. And we were, definitely. You can see that just the Cho'Gath, after a certain point, just couldn't do anything anymore, and basically became fodder. And as a result, the rest of their team can't survive, and we're basically able to just steamroll them and win the game. So hooray for Yorick and hooray for my composition. We played well and we were able to crush them. And also Yorick's strengths, they weren't truly expressed here because my ultimates weren't all that great. But as you can see, there's some potential on him as a jungler if only Riot decides to tap into it. This channel is supported by my sponsors, Crunchyroll and Loot Crate. Check out the description below for links to the websites. Signing up for any trials, including Crunchyroll's free anime trial, greatly supports my channel. Also remember to give the video a like to support the channel and subscribe if you haven't yet. I've also made a Patreon now, and if you wish to support me through that medium, then I welcome it.